So this is our koa. No matter how small a tree is, whether it's this size or like the lone koa tree, we're starting to make a difference in the air we breathe. If there is no breath, then there is no life. This, my friends, is life. Okay, so you can either hold a tree or Mom will hold a tree.
I'll hold the tree and
and you just kind of squeeze it. Would you enjoy walking through a koa forest, Leah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is going to be part of that forest.
Yeah.
And look around you, honey.
All the
It's
other
starting.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. See, now your mana is in there. Now this tree is going to look strong and healthy.
My head is just full of awesome and magical and life-changing. I just have to thank you for this incredible day and this unbelievable experience that you gave my family. I know this is something they're never going to forget. And I have to say, I have not been on many eco tours in my life, but I think I'd have a hard time finding one that would be more exciting than this one. The level of service out here is amazing. I was thirsty, they gave me a Perrier, and now our hands are dirty and we have steamed, warm, fresh towels.
Lavender scented.
There's a really, really special mana or energy about this place, and I've been across most of Hawaii, but even in one day's time, it changes you. What has it been like for you two to be here all these years?
It never gets old, I can tell you that. And we see things like even today. There's things that happen today that have not happened before, and you never know what to expect, and I think that's part of it. I know from the ecotourism side, we have many people that come up multiple times and the experiences are never the same. And I know that that's in part why this was actually, it's been voted the #1 eco-tour in the state of Hawaii.
What we're actually seeing is flowering on a koa tree that's only about 27 months old. So it's very, very early in the history of a koa tree to start producing seeds.
This is where you're filming those.
Are you kidding?
No, these are the ones.
So Jeff and Daryl, I really have to thank you. It's hard to believe it's been 3 years since we've been together up here in the forest on the ranch. I am amazed at how much the trees have grown in the last 3 years. I saw pods on some of them already. What an incredible thing you've done in the 6 years that you've been doing this. Give us an update.
We're tired.
To someone who has never been up here, how do you explain what this is?
You show them pictures, you tell them what you're doing, and invariably when they actually come up here, they have a whole different impression of the place, because it kind of speaks for itself when you're in the environment, but it's really hard to visualize, especially for people that are coming from a more urban climate.
Jeff, how would you summarize what your mission is?
I think the main thing is what we're trying to do is create something here that's a test bed that other people can emulate, because we're just two guys, and we do joke about the fact that our goal is 1.3 million trees. If it were just he and I doing it, we'd probably hit the goal, but he would be in a walker and I'd be in Depends, and that would be it. So what we realized is that the key to expanding this thing is to give it away, and we're finding people that are thinking like us, that are willing to work with us on this thing and expand it, hopefully on all islands.
This, my friends, is the Four Seasons Hualalai Koa Forest.
Do you ever expect this would be what you'd be doing now?
I think that this is something that is bigger than what we planned, and I think it'll be taken by the next generation to bigger than we can imagine.
Yeah.
And our job is, just like Daryl said, you know, one foot in front of the other, and when we can't do it, somebody else can pick up the baton and continue on.
I know throughout all of this process, you have had to contend with critics who either didn't understand what you're doing or said it wasn't possible. How have you handled that?
Well, the word impossible gets used a lot. I think impossible is just a really big word that people use so they can stay in their comfort zone and not challenge themselves to try and find solutions. I think the forest has been explaining most of it away, and we actually have very few critics at this point.
I'm just glad I didn't know it was impossible when we started.
There you go.
I had somebody standing with me right where we were today, and they said, you won't get a tree in the ground until pigs can fly, was their comment. And
can I add something to that?
Sure.
If you go up to see the outhouse, there's a weather vane up there, and it's flying pigs.
We were able to jumpstart this by putting together a tree investment program where people would buy a block of trees for future harvest, and the resource from that sale allowed us to get those trees in the ground, get fencing in, get things started. But the goal was always reforestation, and by getting that initial start, we were also able to plant trees that were for permanent reforestation. And those trees are being sponsored by individuals, one or two at a time, by corporate sponsors that are doing it as part of their sense of responsibility to the environment. And that model has taken on kind of a life of its own. So we're able to expand the diversity of the forest. A lot of those trees are starting to become other endemics like sandalwood and mamani and nio, so we're able to expand the diversity of the forest.
Jeff, why koa?
I kind of feel like I was partly responsible for the degradation of koa because I love koa furniture. And as I had pieces made, I found more and more that the wood artisans were taking longer and longer, and I just thought they were really busy. And it turned out that it was just more difficult to find the quality of wood that they're looking for. And as I started to look into it, I realized that if we don't fix it, it's going to be something that's unfixable.
Yeah, in fact, they estimate that about 90% of the original koa forests on the Big Island are gone.
What do you want to see here in 10 years?
What I'm most interested in seeing is the canopy's starting to close on the first-year trees, and we're starting to bring in more of the other endemic understory species. And what I'm anxious to see is a forest where you wouldn't know that there was a rangeland in place before you started, where the grass is faded back and the understory shrubs and native ferns are really the dominant feature under the canopy of trees.
So people can sponsor a tree, have the experience of coming up here and planting the tree, but there's another way that you've created for them to stay connected to that tree too. Explain that.
When we started this from an investor's point of view, one of the big concerns was, how do I know that my tree is my tree and that no one has been sold the same tree? And so we looked at a variety of technologies and finally settled on RFID tags, which is an electronic serial number that you can attach to the tree. And that electronic serial number has allowed us to track all of the history of that tree, both its parentage and its care and its GPS location in the field. And because we're able to do that, maps can be generated that show the exact location of every tree and the identity of that tree. So if someone has sponsored that tree and they look at that map and they click on their tree, it'll bring up all the information about that tree.
So now with your own GPS numbers, you can actually go online and click in and watch your tree grow.
Absolutely. In fact, the tree that you planted, you'll be able to zoom right in on that location and see the tree as it is today and how it grows over the next years.
That's cool stuff.
All right.
Mahalo.
You're welcome.
And I know that you've also shared with me, not only do people do trees in memory of, but at times you've had people who will bring ashes up and want to put them in the dirt with the tree so that the tree actually absorbs you know, the DNA of that person, which is fascinating.
It is.
A lot more personal than when you adopt a star and you get a certificate for that. So.
And I think one of the reasons that this has been so successful is people that donated money to conservation organizations for reforestation, they donate their money, it'd go into a pool, and somewhere people were planting trees. But in our case, there's such a complete link between their sponsorship and an exact tree that there's a sense of ownership or identity with it that that is much more compelling than just donating money to a cause.
This is a perfect example of life, that it nurtures us together. And yet, God brought us here to this special place today. That is priceless, there are no boundaries, that is wonderful. Thank you.
I think what really separates this is if you think about it globally or larger than yourself, and people look at what's going on and they go, oh, deforestation, it's such a big deal. I'm going to make a donation. I don't know if it did any good, that sort of thing. Whereas with what we're doing, they can not only be part of the bigger picture, but if they want to drill down and see the granular impact that they have, they can say, that's my tree right there. I'll help put that in the ground. And I think that connectivity makes everybody's individual efforts come together, so you kind of get both. You get the satisfaction of saying, that's what I did, and then you can step back and see how it impacts with everybody else's efforts.
And Jeff, this initial dream of having these trees and reforestation, you've now found a multitude of ways of expanding what's happening out here. Talk to me about some of the other businesses and what else has come out of this.
Oh, gee. Well, we've recently expanded into the production of honey, and this is the first ever koa honey ever produced in the world. And with that koa honey, we've formed partnerships with Kona Brewing Company to create the first ever beer made with koa honey, and we've also got plans to roll out the first ever koa honey shochu. From the outside looking in, most people would say they're not connected, but they really are, because everything we're doing here is trying to show landowners that there are economic solutions to putting forests back. In a nutshell, we're trying to provide an opportunity for landowners to do well while doing good.
Tell me about some of the companies in Hawaii who have partnered with you in this effort, either to buy trees or...
We have some excellent partnerships. Four Seasons Hualalai has committed to 500,000 trees. We also have Hagedon Printing, which is the largest printer in the state. More recently, we have partnered with the Kahala Resort, and they're making a commitment for 100,000 trees, and that's on the island of Oahu.
So it's coming to Oahu too?
Coming to us near you.
Yes, exactly. In starting the tours, our initial intent was to create sort of an educational arm where we could introduce people to the value of reforestation, but it also provides a little additional income that helps carry the project through to completion. And carbon's another one of those legs of the stool.
And then just recently we were certified as the first gold standard carbon credit in North America.
Now you have to explain how those carbon credits work, because that's pretty cool stuff and very innovative.
Trees are a really good carbon sink because they take up carbon dioxide, release oxygen, and stored carbon.
And then the carbon credits, how do those work?
So our sequestration helps to offset some of the carbon dioxide pollution by other industries.
So with the credits, you're basically saying, I know I pollute, but I am going to pay for something that's going to help clean up that pollution.
That's pretty much exactly what goes on.
Now see, I understood her.
Yeah.
This was a series of whistles and clicks.
It took me 3 years, though, of being with you to get it down into one sentence.
Very good.
But it's brilliant. And what I also love, and Jeff, you shared, is that you have some companies, even locally, that care about the environment, and even though they're not polluting, they're interested in promoting and purchasing the credits just to say that we're doing good by our island home. So
yes, and the whole methodology for us doing the carbon is because carbon is a long-term project, a 50-year project, and it generates revenue every year for the next 50 years. And once the forest is in place and paid for, you still have land taxes or fences that are broken or just general repair. We found that annually, the carbon that's sequestered that can be sold will generate enough income for the forest to maintain that forest for 3 years. So this could push out 150 years. After that, it's somebody else's. We discussed it. It's somebody else's problem.
our children's
Exactly.
problem.
Yeah.
The problem with any large problem is I think people have a tendency to think that the solution has to be really complicated. A really good example of this is back in the 60s. There was a space race going on between the Russians and the Americans. One of the issues was how do you get a writing utensil in space that can write in zero gravity and upside down. And so NASA hired the Fisher Pen Company to create a device, and they spent over $1 million of R&D. The Russians brought a pencil. Okay, so the point here is that it does not have to be complicated, and the simple yet profound act of planting a tree could very well solve the problems of today and future problems for our children. with regard to the environment.
This entire ranch used to be full of koa trees, and unfortunately they were destroyed, but for me it's about, and for this entire project, it's about rebuilding that forest, rebuilding life and giving that life to the state of Hawaii. Something that is so special because koa represents strength, but it also represents life. I don't view Miss Hawaii as a title to be worn or a place on a map because it's so much more than that. It's a living, breathing culture, and the things that make it special are the koa forests, the lehua blossoms. So to be able to be a part of that and that legacy is what makes being Miss Hawaii so special and so important. So today I'm here planting 53 koa trees, one tree for every state and every girl competing in the Miss America Scholarship Pageant. So I'm here to make our trip to Atlantic City carbon neutral and sharing my aloha with every single state. So I think that's really special. We drove up and it was really misty and it was so beautiful. And you see all of these koa trees and you see the chance to put something into the earth that you know is gonna grow and you know is gonna prosper and you know it's gonna give life and restore a forest. So for me, it's really special to know that one day I can come back 10, 20, 30 years from now and maybe bring my children to that same spot and see the thing that I've planted, the tree that I've planted, and watch that grow.
All of our nieces and nephews and graduate from high school, they get a tree. My friends who their children are getting married, they get trees. What more special a gift can you give to someone that you really care about than the future of a koa forest? So how can you not come here and help engage in what this organization has started to do?
I think when I went up and I got to experience being in the forest, it's this sense of pride and it's this sense of mana and aloha that just, it resonates. And it wasn't only a learning experience, it was a spiritual experience. To feel something that you know has been around for generations and will continue to grow for generations. You know, in all honesty, I think it's impossible to fully articulate that feeling when you step out and you feel that mist surrounding you and the chanting in Hawaiian, you get chicken skin because it's unbelievable. And you're really feeling this thin thread of connection that connects you to the world around you and that you have the opportunity to be in a place that's so sacred. So I recommend for anyone that has the opportunity to come here to come and do this. You definitely won't regret it. It's life-changing.
We will never forget this moment, but it is also, we are connected, we are lay now, truly bonded and connected because of this spiritual moment. And all the kupuna have blessed us, because this uhiwai, the makani, the kai, everything that surrounds us, we are embraced. We carry this wherever we go. So whenever you need a moment of strength, remember this moment. This is your koa. This is our koa.
And so, plant me a koa tree. Plant me a koa tree.
Plant me a koa tree. Don't you cry for me. Plant me a koa tree. Don't you cry for me. You touched all the people with your music. It made sense of so much noise.